Today's discussion, and today we're going to be talking working for peace, social cohesion and development. A very, very important aspect in every circle you could be in. This is what we should be talking about. Well, today we have two strong guests, but right now we are with Reverend Canon Grace Kaiso, the team lead livelihoods and governance, and he's going to be taking us through. But later on, we shall be joined with Council Sapir. I'm very sure you are familiar with these faces, so you can be able to join the conversation through in the last segment where we shall be accepting in calls, but also you can share your comments on our different platforms. It can be YouTube, it can be any other social media platform. So today it's my pleasure to introduce to you our very first guest here today, Reverend Canon Grace Kaiso. You're most welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes.
And good morning, our viewers.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a blessing to have rain.
Oh, the morning was terrible.
Rain. Yeah, sorry for the inconvenience, but let's not forget the positive aspect that God is rain is a blessing.
Okay.
Of God to His people.
Some people are complaining floods, what, all those things.
In every place, yeah, it will cause some inconvenience. Part of that, of course, is our own making in terms of how we are managing the environment. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So I want to inform you that this program here is a partnership between the Interreligious Council and Church of Uganda Family TV. So, Canon, I want us to first understand the core mandate of the Interreligious Council of Uganda in fostering peace in Uganda itself.
Thank you so much. And it is an important area for us to look into because Interreligious Council is the platform of faith communities that have realized that it is the God who has called them to serve the people of Uganda is more important than their individual institutions.
Okay.
So the background to the Interreligious Council is that you remember this is part of our history, that we had a lot of religious wars at the beginning of last century. And we were therefore caught up into rivalry. You know, you remember there was between the Christians and the Muslims, between the Catholics and the Anglicans. And all these wars had their origin from the missionaries who brought the faith. And so the missionaries brought their rivalry, France, Britain, and so there was that conflict inbuilt through the missionary endeavor. And so you recall, even if it's evident now, that in many places you have a Roman Catholic school here, you have an Anglican, just opposite, you know. Those are reflections of our history. Sadly, those divisions were also built in our political systems. And so you had at independence, for instance, that the UPC tended to serve or to reflect the aspirations of the President or the Anglican Church. And then you had the DP as the rallying point for the Catholics. So that is our history. Now, the irony of this is that, faith communities are called to be peace builders.
Yeah.
They must be building bridges across difference. They must reflect care, compassion. They must be able to, they must reflect the God they seek to serve, the God of love, the God that does not discriminate, the God who blesses all, irrespective of who people are and what they do. So that was the irony. So some religious leaders, it started actually earlier, in 1963, when the Catholics and Anglicans and the Orthodox, as followers of Christ, decided that they needed to find a platform. They established the Uganda Joint Christian Council. Now, after that, people felt, well, if we are going to be effective in reflecting what the God we serve, the Allah we serve, then we must find a platform where we serve jointly.
Yes.
And that's how now the Muslims came in, the Pentecostals came in, and they established the Interreligious Council in 2001. And at that time, of course, the initial burden was the HIV challenge. And so the faith communities felt that they needed to pull together to be able to respond to this immediate challenge.
Okay. And
so initially, our RCU programs were really related, focused on HIV interventions.
Okay.
But since then, the needs of the nation are growing all the time.
Yes.
And faith communities continuously reflect on what their calling is. What are the issues in the context that demand their response? And so continually they have reflected, continue to reflect, and they have therefore moved programs into peace building, they've got programs into governance and economic empowerment.
Wow.
So if you like, that's really the background to why we have the Interreligious Council of Uganda. It's a platform where faith communities come together to reflect together, to pray together, and to build consensus on issues of their calling and agree on strategies of intervention.
Okay. Can we look at IRCU's peace building efforts that have been coming in?
Yes, you recall we had the war in northern Uganda, and the driving force of intervention on part of the faith communities was the Acholi Religious Leaders Initiative. This was an initiative that included the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and the Muslim leadership. And so you recall the impact that the intervention of faith communities had on that war. You remember that there had been an impasse between LRA and the government. Their conviction was that this conflict would be resolved through military means. Faith communities argued that they had given the military means time over 10 years, and they felt that we needed to find and explore another way, which was through dialogue. Okay. And you remember that the Juba process was very much shaped and influenced by the Interreligious Council Fraternity. So that is one example of our intervention. But beyond that, when we talk about peace building, there is the active interventions in situations of conflict, which we have done, especially during the electoral period. You know that in 2001, for instance, there was an impasse in this country, and the faith communities leadership took it upon themselves to intervene and to mediate. And I don't want to go into details, but many of you who are familiar with that history will recall that we did have a breakthrough in ensuring that the possible violence that would have taken place after 2001 elections was really mitigated by the faith communities. Okay. And beyond that, we also have been active in, as I said, peace buildings, both intervening into active conflicts, but also preventative. So we've for instance, gave birth this idea of the national dialogue.
Oh yes.
This was really after our reflection on the experiences of 2001 election. We felt that the short-term interventions were not enough, that there were fundamental issues within the country which the citizens needed to engage around and build some consensus. Okay. And so we then brought on the table the idea of the national dialogue as a creative space for the citizens to engage around those issues that they think we needed to address. Issues of our governance, issues of shared economy, economy that blesses everyone, issues of how do we celebrate our diversity, as a nation. Must we continue to experience our diversity as a liability, or do we look at it as a blessing, as an asset that we can use? So we did share this idea. It was very welcomed, and various facets within the society picked it up. Farmers, professions in health, education, in business, even in security, they welcomed the idea. So that's another critical initiative. It has not borne the fruits that we desired, I must say. We had made significant progress in bringing on board everybody. Government, His Excellency the President, agreed to it. But I think in the process of implementation, we experience some bottlenecks. And I think that's where we are. And for some of us, this is still very much a live agenda, that the need for national dialogue is as needed today as it was when we first initiated it.
Okay. So how has IRCU been able to balance, the nation has a diversity of religion. Have you been able to balance religious diversity to ensure unity? Majorly during these political moments, we have seen some by-elections, mostly in Western Uganda. You find these ones are Catholics, these ones are Protestants, those kind of battles. How do you ensure unity in such? And then for them not to even arise any other time?
Well, at the institutional level, as IRCU, we create spaces for dialogue. And those spaces for dialogue include all our religious leaders.
Okay.
We use them to reflect on our calling and our role in nation building. And we have done that in every election. And for instance, now we're going to be planning, we are going to the regions to try and do that, to help our faith community, faith leaders to appreciate that they have a very unique role, especially in nation building generally, but they have a unique role especially during the elections. Why? Because elections tend to bring the worst out of our political leadership, and therefore, as guardians of peace, as guardians of unity in the country, we need to position ourselves in a way that we remain relevant to peace building in times of conflict, in times of high tension. So that's what we do. We sensitize our religious leaders about their role. Wow. And we also actually work across differences. We engage with the leaders of all political parties, for instance. We engage with the opposition, we engage with the NRM staff, we engage with the Electoral Commission. These efforts are meant to create an environment of dialogue. And I think where there is high interest and conflict of interest, you don't want people to fight it out. You want people to have dialogue. And so that's what we've tried to do. Okay. We do intervene through creating spaces for dialogue and building senses and deepening understanding of our responsibilities, because they are duty bearers who become arrogant. They are citizens also who become arrogant. So we try to deepen our understanding of our responsibilities as citizens towards building a stable and thriving nation.
Wow, that's a very good one. Now, just like I had told you, we were waiting for Council John Osapir, who is the IRCU manager for legal advocacy, and it is my pleasure to bring him in so that he can give us his views. Council, you found us discussing the role of IRCU in peace building. So in that regard, as you greet our people, please take it up from there.
Thank you very much, and our viewers and listeners, we are delighted to be here to speak about peace. Because the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers,
Oh, yes.
for theirs is the kingdom of God. So I think it's critical that we preach peace. And this is not only upon religious leaders, it is everyone's role to be an ambassador for peace, an ambassador for social cohesion. So, first of all, looking at the contribution of the Interreligious Council, I think we are making a big contribution to promoting social justice. We do this in respect to, of course, first of all, pushing for justice and fairness in the community and in the societies where we are, but also speaking about the need for, observation of issues of accountability, observation of human rights, and we do this through our high-level advocacy. And unfortunately, sometimes, people do not see us in front of the camera speaking on some of these things. But for us, our approach is different. In the Bible, there are two approaches. There is the John Baptist approach.
Yes.
And then there's the Nathan approach. When Nathan heard that the prophet, when Nathan heard that the king had sinned, he approached the king and spoke to the king in respect to his sin, and of course called him to repentance. That was David. So we use that Nathan approach. We do not use the John Baptist approach of public speaking. But of course, when there's need for public speaking, we definitely rise up and speak.
Yes.
And speak up. So, but of course, the society, most times, they want public speakers more than people who use the approach of diplomacy.
Yeah, that's very true.
So that is the approach that we use when we are advocating for issues of equality, advocating for issues of human rights, violations, and we engage with the different institutions. So we think that, of course, we engage with the Uganda Human Rights Commission. We often engage with Parliament of Uganda, the committees of Parliament on human rights and legal, and other like-minded institutions. So I think our contribution to social justice is, of course, one of the drivers to peace. And then the other thing is that religious leaders are able to model peace. How do we model? First of all, we model through scripture. That is the tool for transformation, because I believe that the Bible says the gospel is the power of God unto salvation to everyone who believes. So I think it's critical that if we are going to have real peace, we have to model that peace in the communities, in the people that engage with us, people that come to our religious institutions. As you already heard, that the Interreligious Council is the only organization that speaks to about 20 million people every weekend. On Friday, the Muslims will gather and will preach the message of peace and the message of unity and the message of reconciliation, but also forgiveness, which is very critical. And then on Saturday, the Seventh-day Adventists will gather. The same message. On Sunday, the Christians will gather. The same message. So we are modeling peace through our ministration to the people that come to the religious institutions. But apart from that, we also model peace through community engagements. For For example, we've had a number of engagements in Kasese. We were working with the Elman Peace, which is an organization that advocates for peace and promotes conflict resilience. It's a Somalia-based organization, and they were funded by UNDP, and so they were also extending funding to us. And what we're doing in Kasese, we were working with the religious leaders in the Kasese side, but also religious leaders on the other side of the DRC. And what we're doing with religious leaders, and by the way, almost every time we have these engagements, especially these regional engagements, we invite other actors, so we don't work alone. We'll invite the people from the local government, we'll invite the cultural leaders, and this is one of the niche of the Interreligious Council, especially when you talk about promoting social cohesion. So we bring all these actors in the same place, and first of all, we create space for dialogue on different issues. So we will give an opportunity. For example, you have the resident district commissioner there, you have the DEO there, you have the community development officer, the CDO there, you have all the other actors there. And so if there is a challenge in the community, these local leaders will be able to respond to the questions put forward, things of concern to them. So those are some of the things we do. So we create space for dialogue and engagement.
Okay.
And also bring together these different leaders from different backgrounds, so that they are able to engage. And because of that, we've seen peace returning back to Rwenzori region. You know that, because of there's so many challenges that that region has faced, there was need to actually bring together leaders so that they could discuss and agree on strategies through which they can mitigate violence, but also agree to restore harmony in that area. And so right now we see religious institutions working together. You have all the religious institutions in that area. They are now together. They work together, which we think is very critical. The same thing we've done in Gulu, so many engagements and trainings. That is part of capacity building in respect to promoting peace and social cohesion. We've done that in Teso, we've done that in Karamoja, we've done that in Bugisu, we've done it in Bukedi. So we are doing the work. Unfortunately, sometimes people do not visit our social media handles, and I want to make a call to the people who are listening to us to visit the social media handles of the Interreligious Council and learn about what we are doing. Visit our website. There's a lot of material on our website that you could actually benefit from. Yeah. Okay,
very interesting. And now let me get back to Canon about, in your own view, what could be the threats that are threatening the peace and cohesion in our country, in your own view?
First, I want to appreciate John for underlining, that the RCU is really committed to peace building. We are the things that threaten peace are economic, increasing disparity between people's capacity to take care of their needs. Where you have maybe young people, for instance, we have young people who are out of employment, young people who are struggling to meet their educational needs, because education has become very expensive, and you find young people, parents are unable really to meet their needs. They sell the land, and all the extra land they had is sold, and they are left with only a small portion for survival. And parents just declare to children, I have nothing to do. So children maybe begin to do petty jobs to try and raise school fees. Now, those disparities cause discord in society, and can be a source of conflict. Then the regional disparities. You know, if you, like our country, for instance, you go to different parts of Uganda, and you see, you know, the other people are living like they're in Switzerland and others. So it is like, you know, naturally, you know, it creates a sense of discontent and feeling. And lack of inclusive policies, you know, policies that marginalize, for instance, against women, their access, and that people are subjected to disadvantage because they are women or they are young people. So policies of that nature, they cause discontent and disruption in the peace and cohesion of the nation. Okay. And the politics, how we organize our politics. And then I think for me, that's also one area of great concern. That has a country that has had history of psychic conflict, particularly sparked off through election mismanagement. You know, that we are still not learned. We are still continuing with in managing our politics in partisan ways, in ways that are marginalizing, in ways that are brutalizing, and so that this destabilizes the nation, you know, because then some people feel that they don't quite belong, and that they don't quite have access, you know, to the national cake, if you like, you know, and that their deliberate attempts to keep other people at bay away from that cake. And so where we don't have institutions functioning, because you see the purpose of establishing institutions is part of it is to ensure social justice, you know, and so where you have institutions that are not serving the common good, you know, that in itself, you know, health institution, you know, have people access, is it affordable, you know, and so these become now, you know, sources of discontent, and therefore they can disrupt our peace. And I think for Uganda, all the things that I've mentioned are true. It's partly why some of us believe at Interjust Council that national dialogue is indispensable. You see, you get to a point where, you know, the dynamics in a country is such that nobody trusts the other. Yeah. You know? And so how can you build peace when there's no basic trust? You know, and it's like there's that saying of for the fittest, how does it go?
Survival for the
fittest. You know? So you must survive because you have live connections here and there. You must survive because you belong to this faith. You have survived, you know. So that kind of reality in our country cannot really be addressed like through elections. It can't. You know, elections, if anything, make it worse. So the concern for some of us who are treasure peace building and national stability is that we need the conversation. We need to move away from this culture of violence to a culture of peace, where it is natural for people in the country to think differently, and also for people to be blessed differently, you know. But the important thing is to say, this is our mother country. This is where everybody must thrive. This is where we must realize our aspirations. So how does that happen? So there are some basic things that we don't have at the moment, or their indeficiency, which are complicating the cohesion and stability of the nation.
Wow. Council,
Yes, sir.
your thought on threats. One that has got to my mind is the fact that we cannot trust ourselves. Members of Parliament do mention that they walk along with their chapatis in their suits. They do not trust anyone around them. What is your thought on the threats that can threaten peace in our country?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I want to think that the role of the family, if the family does not take up its role to mentor, to nurture peace, grow young people who have respect for others, grow young people who have respect for elders, then definitely our moral foundations will be broken from the start. So I think that if the family does not rise up to take its position, if parenting is not observed, rather if we do not give enough time to parenting and upbringing of young people, we shouldn't expect much, because I think that peace starts from the home, and peace is modeled from the home. Peace is built from the home, and that foundation is very critical, because once you have young people who are groomed with life skills and the principles of life, will be able, first of all, to have happy marriages. You see, when we talk about peace, we should look at it from a big angle, not just in respect to, you know, peace as a country collectively, but also peace in our homes, peace in our houses, peace where we are. So I think if we do not carry out our respective roles in respect to parenting and grooming of young people, then we'll definitely miss it, and that threatens peace, the peace of our country. So for us to have peace, we need to have stability of the family. Once we are sure that we have stability, that's where it starts from. And then secondly, the other thing is the politics of division. The politics of division. The politics of personalities. It is always shocking that, you know, when you are in the opposition, it's like a crime.
Yeah.
Because you just see, especially now that we are moving into elections, some people will be stopped from going to do regional, you know, consulting their structures. So this kind of politics is not healthy for our country. I wish we could learn something from Kenya. That time for politicking is politicking. But after politics, people come together to work together, you know? And this is what we see with the Azimio of Right Honorable Raila Odinga. And we see that with NAC in Kenya. But here, it's a different story.
Very different.
And I wonder, how did we get to this point? That our politics is so divisive, that you know, we can't, political leaders don't even want to meet face to face.
They can't.
You know? Yet, of course, there is a framework. Government has put there the National Consultative Forum of Political Parties. And I think they are doing a good job in terms of, bringing together these political parties. But we want to see something more than that. So that our politics is not about enmity. Yeah? It's not about enmity.
You see, even when an opposition person decides to work for the government, they say they have switched.
Exactly. and for me, because I thought that politics is about service to the people, to the communities. So when people like Honorable Norbert Mao go to NRM and they have that MOU collaboration and they work together, for me, I think that's what leadership should, be about. That you're able to put aside your differences and you pursue working together for the common good, but also for the people. I was excited a few days ago. We were having the AGM for the Uganda Christian lawyers, and the Honorable Norbert Mao was the chief guest, and he came in his green shirt, and I said, "This is how politics should be." It should not be a game of one person. We must be inclusive in our leadership. So we want to see political leaders working together. People are talking about change in governance, especially now that we are moving to 2026. But we do not see, there's nothing that we see among political parties. Everyone is seemingly working for themselves. NUP is working alone, FDC is working for itself, DP is working alone, NRM is working alone. So we need to see alliances, coming together, because if we can have those alliances, then we can preach unity, national unity. But if we cannot sit in the same table like this, it will be very hard for us to realize this national unity that we are talking about. And I think that's why Cameron is speaking about the national dialogue, where you have all actors coming together, they sit together, and they determine the kind of future that they want to have as a country. So we need to have more of those spaces where we are able to, engage as either as political leaders or as stakeholders, because Uganda is for all of us, and we should engage as stakeholders. For example, every year there is a report of the Equal Opportunities Commission, and the report of the Equal Opportunities Commission tells us the inequalities that exist in our communities at the national level, at regional level, in terms of access to social amenities and social services. But we question, how do our policy makers working with such reports to reduce imbalances? Because for me, I'm surprised. I attended a planning meeting, and unfortunately nowadays seemingly I don't want to attend some of those stakeholder engagements, because we keep on repeating the same. Karamoja, they will show you the status of Karamoja, its economic status. It will be constant. The same thing with Northern Uganda. Recently the MPs said they don't want to be told about their economic status. You see that? So are we working intentionally to see that we reduce these inequalities? Why are statistics the same? The statistics will always be the same, and yet we have PDM. We've had all the other poverty alleviation schemes. So we really want to see positive change. So I think that the planning unit for government should really take consideration of the reports of the Equal Opportunities Commission, so that we are able to deal with the issues of inequalities. The other thing is, we all need to enjoy the national cake. We all need to enjoy the national cake. And I know you know what I'm talking about. But if you do a sample of the government parastatals here in this country, what are you going to find out? You will find that either, you know, all the CEOs will either be from two places.
Very true.
And the Speaker of Parliament was wondering, why is it that I do not vet people from Teso or from northern Uganda, you know? So, and these are things we should confidently speak about, because, I mean, if we do not speak about them, these are the things that divide us.
Oh, yes.
These are the things that, you know, make us think, oh, I think we need a better country than this one. But if we are able to speak, if we are able to dialogue on these issues, you know, that threaten our peace, I think we'll be able to have stability.
Okay, Council, I think let me first hold it from there. We shall continue immediately when we take off these commercials. Oh yes, welcome back. You are still watching the Uganda We Want here on Judge of Uganda Family TV, a partnership with the Interreligious Council. Here with me is Reverend Canon Grace Kaiso, also with Council John Osapir, and we've been discussing a number of things that really matter out there, the things that are affecting us, but of course giving them little attention. So if we do not speak about them, we had spoken about the obvious things that are not being addressed, and of course that end up threatening peace in the long run. What is your say? What can be done in this in this regard? Leave alone the people, but what can be done from up? That is the people in charge, the government, and all those things.
Yeah, you see, leadership is about serving those that have entrusted you with that leadership. And so leadership is about being responsive to the needs of those that are put you in leadership. So our expectation, which is not an unrealistic expectation, sometimes it appears as if it's very unrealistic, but our realistic expectation is that those in government are duty bearers. They have been entrusted with some responsibility on our behalf, you know. And so our expectation is that they must respond to the needs, listening. You sometimes wonder, are our leaders listening to the pain, to the suffering of the people? So listening, we think that that is a great responsibility. 3, work within the constitutional frameworks. Because working through the constitutional provisions they were established deliberately to ensure that we are guarded against these, you know, human weaknesses, human tendencies, you know, so that like, you know, if there are opportunities for jobs, follow the guidelines. Follow, you know, don't try to cut. Yeah? If there are needs, feel with the people and act accordingly. Because I think God made us in such a way that we have a sense of feeling of what is right and what is wrong. And I think, and especially now in a country like ours, where people claim to be religious, know, you would expect that people will be more caring, more compassionate. So our expectation from those in the government is listen here, listen with compassion. Second, act within the provisions of the law. And then thirdly, take this as not a right, but as a responsibility, as a great honor. That we want their mindset to change. Leadership, we need to have a mindset change. That to be in a position of leadership is a great privilege. It's an honor. If God has given you the opportunity. So how come that other leaders, when you visit the countries, have brought transformation? There is peace, there is unity, there is a sense of direction for the country, there is justice and fairness, And then you visit other countries and you really feel things are falling apart, And part of the reality within our country is that because we have neglected our responsibility as duty bearers, we are not, we've chosen not to be accountable. Security, our people are not accountable. Whether you're in health, you don't ask hard, difficult questions. People will get annoyed and think, what are you want to overthrow government? No. If this is of education and you question, the capacity for parents to meet the school fees, then you appear as if you are such an inconvenience in society. When you talk about the conduct of security agencies, and say, but these are our brothers, these are our children. You are relating with your sisters, your cousin brothers, Why must you be that brutal? What is it that is driving you to do that? And so sometimes when you try to raise those issues, some people feel like you're a disruption.
You're also an enemy.
and an enemy. So really, the calling of those in political leadership is let us change our mindset. It's a privilege, not a right, to be there. Let us be accountable. Let's listen with compassion to the people and know that we're not only accountable to the people that have elected us, but we're also accountable to God, who sees what we do in the open and also behind the doors. So that the level of accountability will rise. This kind of corruption that has crippled our country, if unchecked, we're really building on sand. We're not building on the rock. So I don't know that I've answered your question, but I was just trying to look into the responsibility. And this, when we talk about leadership and the political realm, it is the same with the leadership at different levels in other sectors, whether it is religious as well. We too have our own challenges. Are we responding to our calling as guided by our scriptures? For instance, are we servant leaders? Or are we people who are lording it over the others? Are we being passionate and caring and reaching out to those who are disadvantaged among us? Or are we making and increasing the burden of those that are under us? So there are areas of self-examination here. And sadly, we have not built that within our culture. Our retreats often, like government retreats, are meant to look into, how things should be functioning, and being open to one another. Sadly, those spaces are really used to serve a certain interest, certain ideologies, and so even religious leaders, they call you for retreat. You're not given the space to question how are the structures functioning? You know? Are they responsive to the needs? What must change? Those are don't become part of the agenda. You know, so that there's a deficiency even in the spaces that would have helped us to improve and to change.
Well, Councillor John, when Canon was speaking, my mind flew back to the Iron Sheet saga, where people failed to totally account. This one said that I didn't ask for them, but they are using. This one said I found them in my compound, things like that. What is the danger of failing to account for these public assets or public funds?
First of all, if those in public offices do not account, you know, there's apart from the Mabati saga, but they are also supposed to account in terms of their wealth.
Yes.
What, for example, you're earning 2 million shillings, but you're sleeping in a mansion. And you know, you're driving you know, the latest car, you know, and given your salary, it doesn't resonate with the kind of property that you have. So the lack of accountability is a big driver and a sign that corruption is at its peak. And of course, Uganda, just like the other East African countries, have been listed as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Unfortunately, the statistics don't change. We are always in the tail end of the statistics.
Yeah.
And we wonder when we shall come probably in the middle, the mid countries, in spite of our very good structures for anti-corruption. The Inspectorate of Government, the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, now we have the Investors Protection Unit. You know, all these agencies, it seems there's a willingness to fight corruption from the top. I don't know whether we as citizens, we are actually partners in the fight against corruption. That's probably a question to debate about. But because you see, the fight against corruption and the lack of accountability is supposed to be everyone's role. You need to move with everyone if you're going to deal with corruption and issues of accountability. So it's important for us to, of course, as religious institutions, to prepare our people so that they can ask, they can put their leaders to account. For example, you have the Constituency Development Fund. Canon, I think it's still there. The Constituency Development Fund.
I don't hear about it.
But today, if I go to my constituency is Bukoli North constituency in Uganda. I really wonder what that Constituency Development Fund has actually been doing for the past years that we've had parliament. Because you will not see that maybe the MPs will give money to SACCOs so that people are able to access cheap credit in those SACCOs using the Constituency Development Fund. It would be a surprise, but they will give money to a value. Yeah, they will give money to probably someone who has a function, but issues that concern growth and development of the people, you will not see anybody going there. Yeah, so I think this thing of accountability is a lion in the house that we have to actually deal with. to see that those who are entrusted with leadership are able to account to the citizens. For example, how many times does government come to say last year we passed a budget of this much, and this is what we're able to use, this is what we're able to return, and this is what we did? Or it is just the normal ask for a supplementary, and it is shocking that a supplementary budget will be asked for 3 months within the new financial year. There's a supplementary budget. So you wonder, what are our planners doing? Are they actually planning? Why would you have a supplementary budget? You're requesting for additional money just after 3 months into, you even not finished the first quarter into the financial year, and you're already asking for supplementary. So there's a big challenge. And I think this thing of accountability should probably be structured so that we do not just speak about it, but probably we need a very clear legal framework to, enable us drive the issue of accountability for public funds. Yeah, so there are many challenges. How many commissions have been set up in this country? And you'll be shocked. The recommendations of the commissions are not implemented, but government spent a lot of money on those commissions, and there are many commissions that we've had, but no accountability afterwards. Because if you're using taxpayers' money, you need to account.
Yeah.
So unless we really account, we will never stop borrowing. And yet our country has a lot of potential. We probably have it all. We have the lakes, we have gold, we have most of the resources. Think about the oil thing. If we cannot account for the little that we have, we will definitely not be able to account for the big that we are going to have, because now we are talking about oil and gas resources. So if we are not able to account for the gold in Karamoja, who is manufacturing it? Where is the gold going? Where is the money put for the gold? Unfortunately, if you ask this kind of questions, people will think you're not a good cadre. But I think it's critical that we ask these questions, because Trump said the Africans should go back to their countries, because God has blessed you with a lot of resources, but you don't put your leaders to account. We have all the resources. If you travel to Dubai, for example, which was more of a desert, they've transformed that country completely. Why? Because leaders were able to deal with the issue of corruption and ensure that all funding goes to the intended activities. But for us here, the Auditor General's report for last year showed a lot of money that was provided by government, but the money was never utilized. You can imagine, you have a budget and leaders are supposed to implement that budget, but they are returning money to the confines of the state, and yet the state has actually provided that money. And then also that Auditor General's report talks about charm work, what is done in a substandard manner, and government loses a lot of money in contracts that are done, and they are not to the standards, so they lose money. It could be a bridge. Yeah, so I think we really, when we talk about patriotism, I think we really need to love our country. Because there is no better country than this in the world. Some of us have been blessed to move around the world. There is no better country. Canon will tell you is widely traveled. There is no better country than this country of ours. The weather, the people, the mineral resources. We are so blessed. The terrain, extremely blessed. But why are we not getting to the middle income? And maybe we are already in the middle income. I don't know. But we are seemingly not getting there. Yet we have everything it takes for us to get there.
I said we are in lower middle.
Lower middle. Why don't we get to the top middle? Because, I mean, we have it all. We have what it takes. But if you investigate properly, you realize the whole thing is about the lack of accountability. Corruption. That's where the problem is. So, if we could be able to deal with this challenge of the lack of accountability, resources, and this thing is not only for government, even religious institutions need to account. Because we also know religious leaders who have amassed a lot of wealth, and that wealth cannot be explained. You know, you are supposed to be earning a salary from the church, given your labor, but you take it all. A friend of mine was in church, and so she could pay the tithe, and her tithe was good. And when I say it is good, probably it's more than 10 million a month. But unfortunately, after she has given tithe the following week, one of the religious leaders comes and then asks, "Oh, please, I need some money. My child has not reported to school."
Okay.
So the young lady says, "But I just gave tithe to this church last week. You mean you people have not been paid?" So the next thing, what she did was to get the tithe and divide it into 4 among the pastors in the church, and gave this one, gave this one, gave the other one, and gave the other one. When the senior leader came to know what she has done, it was not good for her. But those are issues of accountability. You know, even for religious institutions, there is need to account. You must have books of accounts. You must have a budget. Many churches do not have budgets. Many churches do not have a work plan. Yeah? Many churches, you never see a proposal from them. Yeah? But they will always want to depend on what people are giving. And yet God has blessed us with a lot of resources, a lot of land that, you know, we can put to use in our structures, and that will be of help to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Council. When we return, I'm going to call in Canon to also give us a highlight in that regard of accountability as we wrap it up. Then we see peace and development, because peace plays a very vital role in the development of a country. So a short break and we'll return to that, then see how we can wind up. Please be reminded, you can contact us. The numbers are there on your screens. You can call us or send in a message on any of the platforms or even on WhatsApp. Please stay on as we go for a short break.
Get ready to embark on an enlightening journey with our exciting news segment, Know Your Church, exploring Anglican churches across Uganda, airing every Wednesday in the News at 8 bulletin here on Church of Uganda Family TV. Join us as we delve into the rich history, profound community impact, and spiritual significance of Anglican churches across our beautiful nation. Each episode promises a unique experience where we will explore fascinating histories and architectural wonders. Be ready to be part of the segment and don't miss the chance to learn more about your local Anglican church. Know Your Church, celebrating faith, heritage, and community spirit.
The Uganda We Want is the program, and a number of discussions coming up. Remember, I am here with Reverend Canon Grace Kaiso, who is also joined with Councillor Jonas Sapir, and we're discussing a number of things. And now we find ourselves caught in the accountability process. And I immediately want to ask Reverend.
We are stewards. God has created us, entrusted us, and endowed us with so much. So accountability is the recognition really that there is the source, the person, the ultimate giver, the ultimate source of what we have. And that is what we failed to do when Adam and Eve, failed us as human beings. That God had given them literally everything, but had given guidance on how to manage those things, and they could not. And the consequences, we reaped them, we continue to reap them. So I think accountability for us is we need to be aware that we actually are stewards. What do you have that God has not given you? Nothing.
Everything.
Nothing.
Is around.
And so that recognition will create the desire, the need for us to want to act in ways that the giver would like us to act. So that he interested you can be blessed. To bless, you are privileged so you can be a privilege to others, privilege others. So I think it's a question of first a failure to recognize that we are but just stewards of the things that we have, and that that accountability is not only in the things that God has given us, but who we are. That God's Spirit is in us to convict us so that we become more accountable. So that's why Christians should not worry too much about the laws, but we have a conscience, the conscience that God has not left us alone. He recognized that decision making would be very difficult, but that we need the help of the Holy Spirit to convict us and to guide us. So ordinarily, when I was still in charge of institutions, what helped me to make difficult decisions, especially around finances, was to ask the question, if this was my personal money, would I use it this way?
Good question.
So if I'm given resources to manage, and I have make decisions, I would be asking, okay, now, 1 billion shillings. We plan to do it this way, this way, this way. If it was my personal money, would I actually use it this way? And there are simple things like that that can help us personally to improve our level of accountability. And it's also a reflection of the value you place on the other people. Because you've been given resources, like to buy drugs, to help the health system. Now, what value are you placing to the people that are beneficiaries of that? If you don't value them, then you can use those resources to enrich yourself, to build. But in the process, you're actually cheating yourself. Because I pity people who, in a family, if you are not accountable to one another, and you have resources that you are trying to use in a way that is not responsible, it will catch up with you. Because, let me say, if you are given resources for economic empowerment to your members of your families, you have worked maybe at an arrangement as a family and you want to improve, but you are not faithful in executing that. The burden of those people come back to you who seem to be better off.
Yes.
And you pity the ministers, you pity our members of parliament, They can't go to villages. Why? Because the burden, the needs in the communities are enormous. But if they really reinvested the resources were in those communities, you improve health services, you improve education services, you improve the infrastructure, it means that actually the people are not going to be following you. They are preoccupied with productive activities that help them to generate some income. But because you've deprived them of any opportunities for economic development, they will come back to you and beg. So I think issues of accountability is also how we place value, what value we place on the others. Because if we know that they are made in the image of God, they deserve better, then we would be making more responsible decisions.
Okay.
Recognizing that you are blessed to bless. Whatever you have is for blessing others, because God has already blessed you, and the obligation you have is to bless others.
Okay.
And therefore, if the orientation in your mind and heart is to bless, then you won't be able to reap off others. You will be wanting the best, wishing the best for others, and creating opportunities for the others.
Wow. And now, Council, let's speak to peace and development, the role of peace in development, but also you highlight us on some of the challenges IRSC is facing in fostering peace here in the country.
First of all, peace and development are interconnected, but they are also independent. And if you have peace in a country, peace is a driver to development. Why? Because for you to have economic growth, you need stability. You need, people should be able to access markets freely. People should be able to move their goods from one place to another without those goods being hijacked from them. So peace is one of the greatest drivers to development. Why? Because peace guarantees stability, peace guarantees security, and so when you have those things, then people can have a good well-being. And when we talk about well-being, we are talking about the ability for people to, own property, the ability for people to trade peacefully, the ability for people to access the international markets. But if there is war in a country, for example, talking about countries that are facing war currently, the economic activities are put on a standstill. Nobody will trade, nobody will sell anything. Why? Because war disorganizes the entire production cycle. So we as a country, we need to work towards peace. And with that peace, we'll be sure we'll enjoy what we are working for. Because if you're working but you're not able to enjoy what you're working for, then there's a problem.
Yes.
But also the security of tenure of what we are doing, especially talk about the property that we have. talk about the houses that you people have, the cars that you have. If we do not work for peace, there is no guarantee that those things can be there to our advantage. So this is why it's everyone's responsibility to promote peace. You have a big responsibility, because if you don't do so, your child will not be able to go to school.
Oh, yes.
I met a professor of law from Sudan. She's here as a refugee, but she was a successful lawyer in Sudan. But here she's not employed. So war displaces people. War breaks the production chain. War takes us back. It actually destroys what we have done. So this is why we should all fight for peace. And so that means government should continue to guarantee human rights, to ensure that the right to life is protected, respected, and guaranteed. Nobody has a right, maybe I should look at the camera, nobody has a right to take another's life unless with the order of court, with the competent jurisdiction to pass such an order. Nobody has a right to kill, you know. We were shocked when, you know, police said the people who were shot down around here in Kamocha, you remember those thieves who were shot down?
Yes, yes.
That, you know, they had been trailing them for some time, and so they needed to do that.
Actually, public shooting.
That's an illegality of the highest order. Unfortunately, the human rights institutions kept quiet. They have not demanded for accountability, you know. So we should desist from taking the law in our hands. The issues we hear that, you know, not just here, but we see them on social media. When people are kidnapped, you know. Because if you are going to arrest someone, you should follow the guidance that has been put there by the law, you know. So we need to respect and uphold this thing of human rights. These rights are not granted by the state. These rights are inherent rights granted to us by God. Yeah, so the right to life, our freedoms of association, our freedoms, freedom from torture, inhuman treatment, and all those things should be implemented. And if they are violated, someone should be able to seek redress from the courts. And the courts have to fast-track justice for the people. So we want to see good governance upheld, issues of the rule of law, people not taking the law into their hands. We want to see, you know, more economic programs that can, you know, alleviate people. People should take advantage of the PDM that we have. The president has been going across the country and asking people, did you get the money? And someone said, Nedda, sente baziwabo bebamanyi.
Oh yeah.
In Masaka, I think. That's what someone says. The IGG should investigate those things that people are talking about PDM, because it's abuse of office, you know. So we want to see a society that really cares about its people, not just milking taxes out of us by all means. There's no country, my friend said so, I think it was Dr. Daniel Weza. He said there's no country in the world that has grown by overtaxing its citizens. You tax data, tax airtime, tax internet, tax
everything,
everywhere. So these are things that we need to definitely have more dialogue about. The challenges faced by IRCU, I think it is resources. We have a lot of capacity because our structures run from the national to the grassroots. But you see, mobilizing those structures for peace, and right now, we've crafted a concept. We are now going to the ground so that we are able to preach peace more seriously this time, now that we are moving into the 2026 elections. But this needs partnership from both state and non-state actors.
Okay.
We will not be able to do the work unless we have the funds, the finances. You know, when we stood against the Anti-Homosexuality Act, when we stood for the Anti-Homosexuality Act, all the donors withdrew funding from the Interreligious Council. So we have those struggles in respect to supporting our program. Of course, we applaud government because they've been able to support us. And probably that's why we could say we are standing to be able to run the operations of the Secretariat.
Okay.
Yeah, so the funding issue, but also the other challenge to the issues of peace is the non-operation of the peace mechanisms, the peace structures in place. You know, the peace structures are seemingly not working to bring out the best. Maybe Canon can add on.
Oh yes, in that regard as well, Canon, as you add on the few challenges, you can also give us a highlight on what the ordinary Ugandan can do so they can also be contributors of peace in our nation.
I think there's no doubt that each one of us appreciates that when you have a peaceful environment, then it creates possibilities. It enables you to do so many things. If, for instance, in a community, there is an investor who has come, he creates opportunities for jobs in the community. And then the thugs come and either kill him, for instance. You would ask the impact of that person, the death of that person in the community, the opportunities that he had opened up in the community, and the dreams that he was enabling people to realize. So it should be our responsibility as citizens to work for peace, to ensure that we create an environment that is peaceful, because it will open various opportunities for our progress, personally, but as families and also as communities. So your responsibility as a citizen is to live peacefully. And as my brother said, peace starts with you. Begin to, are you at peace? Because God has created us, and within us, He has given us the Spirit of God to help us organize our lives, if you like. So are you responding positively to the Spirit of God in your life? To say, this is not right, this is not. And if you do that, then you progressively become an agent of peace, because you are at peace yourself. And let's also work at building peace at our families. There are various ways in which we can do that. And just as we were saying earlier that we need a national dialogue, but I think families also need to create space for dialogue. Because there are issues of misunderstanding, we have issues of intergenerational conflicts and tensions, and sometimes the way we manage them is very disruptive of the young people or even our families. So I think we need to try and find the mechanisms of conversation in our families so that we build the value of peace and dialogue at that level as well. Same to the communities. So I personally believe that God has intended us to live in peace, but that peace is through dialogue. And exactly that. That's why He sent Jesus Christ. That when everything had failed, he went into dialogue with himself and said, what do I do? You know? And then he reached out afresh to the human family through Jesus Christ. And if you like, Jesus Christ facilitated, much of his ministry was facilitating dialogue. You know, he meets Zacchaeus, engages in dialogue. The rich young man, he engages in dialogue. So dialogue is as an instrument for creating peace and understanding and stability is key. And I think we need to begin to find ways in which we nurture that at different levels.
Wow. Thank you so much, Canon. I think due to time, you can also give us your last remarks in that regard so that we can completely wind up with Council John.
Well, fellow citizens, you see us here laboring about peace, about national cohesion, about development. We do that because we believe that it is our collective responsibility to build this country. Each one of us as a citizen has something to contribute. And those of us who are in positions of responsibility have a greater challenge to use those positions to create opportunities and an enabling environment for each of the citizens to contribute to peace. So let's refrain from acts and ways of living and ways of working that are disruptive within society. Let us seek to be peace builders wherever we are, between the members in your family, at community level, and also at national level. We wish you God's blessing in all these endeavors. On behalf of IRCU, we want to assure you that we are committed to using our spaces, the church, worship centers, to using the opportunities that we have at burials and weddings and public functions to spread this message of peace. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Canon. And now, Council John, if you could also give us your parting shots.
Thank you very much. I want to implore us, the leaders, those who are working with religious institutions, and those who are working with government, and those who are in the public service, and everyone. You are a leader where you are. In your family, you are a leader. I want to implore leaders to lead by example and set a standard for others to follow. Because we have a great, the Bible says, talks about the great cloud of witnesses around us. So we have people who are actually watching us, and it's important that we really live what we preach and say what we preach, but also set an example to others through our conduct and what we are doing to others, so that we should be leading the light in respect to advocating, but also fighting for peace. Because we cannot speak about peace when we ourselves are not at peace with those that we live with, or with those that we work with, and with those that we are serving. Number two, Cameron talked about servant leadership. And I think it is critical that we really reflect. Leaders should be able to reflect whether they are actually being servants or they are just rulers. You know, and there's a big difference. I know that one time someone said, I'm not your servant. But you see, if you're leading people, you are a servant, because it's those people who have actually entrusted you with the responsibility to be able to lead and to be able to serve not your interests, but the interests of the people who are out there. So I think it's important that in every capacity where you are, evaluate yourself. We the Christians say we evaluate ourselves to see whether we are still in the faith. So you also need to evaluate yourself whether actually you're using your position for personal gain, or you're using your position to serve your selfish interests. And if you're doing that, then you're not a servant leader. You actually need to retire and get away so that other people should actually come and do the right job. But if you still want to be in leadership, I think it's critical that you serve people, serve their needs, serve, and people will definitely love and respect you and honor you because you're serving them with your heart.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, Councillor John Osapir, who is the IRCU Manager for Advocacy and Partnerships, but also Reverend Canon Grace Kaiso, the Team Leader, Livelihood and Governance. We really appreciate you so much for giving us all these insights in today's discussion. Working for peace, social cohesion and development is what we've been discussing here. So I want to appreciate you for joining us here today on the Uganda We Want. There is a very big goal. Peace does not only require the government to provide, but it is a player for everyone. I don't remember when fire managed to put out fire. So when you're also demanding for a service, please be peaceful. That is how we shall all live in harmony together. But also that is how we shall be able to receive some of these services. But I don't know what should be done in case peace does not work. Of course, it has to be continued peace demanding for these services that we require in society. I want to appreciate you so much for joining us here today. My name is Luke Majumba Linaitwe. We cannot go past this. Have a lovely day.
Dear esteemed